Yeah, there we are. Okay, so we've started to look at nouns. And we said that nouns have um, three aspects to it. Every single Greek noun has three aspects. Can anybody recollect what are the three aspects that noun have? Anybody?
Number,
gender,
please.
Yeah.
number, gender, and case.
Very good. Number, gender, and case. What does the aspect number communicate about the noun?
Singular or plural?
Yes. It communicates how many members are there in the noun. So, for example, in English, if we say box, it communicates that there is one box. But if we say boxes, communicates that there are plurality of boxes. In the same way, in New Testament Greek, Koine Greek, every noun will have a number. It can be either singular, denoting that there is one member in that noun, or it can be plural, denoting that there are multiple members, plurality of members in the noun. What does gender communicate or denote in Koine Greek noun?
Whether whether it will be masculine or feminine or neuter.
That's it. So there are three possibilities for gender in New Testament Greek: masculine, feminine, or neuter. Can we say male, female, or neuter? No. They do not communicate biological gender. They only communicate a categorization. So, for example, in English, when we say prince, we know that it's communicating a biologically masculine male member, right? But that's not the case in Greek. Just because we say the noun adelphos is masculine doesn't necessarily mean that it's a biologically male male noun. These three genders in Greek, masculine, feminine, and neuter, are just categorizations, three different categories. And who decided what noun should be in which category? Just evolved over time. Over time, somehow the people as the language developed, it was somehow decided that a box or a table is a particular gender, right? So these are just categories for the noun. And what does case denote in a noun? Case.
So function.
That's it. So case denotes what function the noun is performing in the sentence. And when we say function, we are talking about, is it acting as the subject, where it is actually performing the action? Tom runs in the field. There, Tom is the subject. The noun Tom is functioning as the noun which is performing the action. That's its function. Some nouns can be the object. Tom threw the ball. The ball there is the object. So nouns can function as objects in a sentence. Sometimes nouns can be possessive. My pen is blue, right? The pen is my pen. It's possessive. Or the noun can be indirect object. For example, Tom threw the ball to Kevin. Tom threw the ball. The ball is the direct object receiving the action through. But to whom? To Kevin. Where Kevin is the indirect object, indirectly receiving the action through the direct object, the ball, right? So there are these different functions that a noun can perform, and that is the case of the noun, right? So we've looked at all of this last time. We also had an introduction to what are these declensions, why are they called first declensions. So please do review them if you have any questions. It's important that you're thorough with that. Okay, so let's continue here. All right. First declension nouns. We'll try to finish the entirety today. So we've already looked at number, gender, and case. We'll maybe very quickly run through them and then do paradigms. And paradigms are tables for declension. And we'll look at what is morphology. Morph is a form, the study of forms. We'll look at the article. We'll look at conjunctions. And we'll look at this idea of what is parsing. And second set of vocabulary, words. Let's get started. Okay. Number. Number can be either singular or plural. We've looked at this. May just refresh your mind. The way Greek communicates whether a noun is singular or plural is through its different endings or declensions. We looked at this. Then we looked at gender. Gender is just categorization in Greek. 3 categories. Every noun can be one of these. No noun can be, every noun can be one of these. And then case is the function. In English, case is determined by word order. Whatever noun precedes the verb, immediately precedes the verb is the subject. Whatever noun immediately succeeds the verb is the object, right? That's how case or function works in English. Whereas in Greek, so we also looked at this, right? How using personal pronouns in English, we communicate possession. Right. In Greek, there are, and I think this is where we have to pick up now, right? In Greek, there are 4 cases. Very quickly, you will actually see that there is another case, but that case is a very, very rarely used case. And that's why in this introductory class, we sort of wait, right? First, we just look at the 4 main cases. And then later on, we'll add one more case to it. Now, if you read some textbooks, they will tell you that there are actually 8 cases, not 4 cases. Because the genitive is again divided into a few, dative is divided, and so on, right? So the fact that there are 4 cases is not a hard and fast rule that it has to be 4 cases. This is one way to look at categorizing case in Greek. If at any time some new grammarian comes and says, no, I like the 8-case system better, it more clearly tells us the function, that could be. But for our class, we are going to work through the fact that there are 4 main cases plus 1 auxiliary or secondary case. Okay. The nominative case. What is the nominative case? The nominative case denotes that the noun is functioning as the subject of the verb, meaning it is performing the action. Do I clear this? So you see here, he phone. This ending here is telling us that it is nominative case. When you see later on, when we come to paradigms, you will be able to see that there are other endings which show other cases, but the ending here is telling us that it is nominative case, which means that the meaning of he phone is the voice as the subject. So anytime you see this form, phone, it does not matter where it is in the sentence in Greek. It could be before the verb, after the verb, end of the sentence, it does not matter. The fact that it has this ending is enough for us to say it is in the nominative case, meaning that it is always the subject of the sentence. Cardii, this ending, I ending is telling us that it is in the plural. Now, by the way, the phone is in the singular. It's nominative singular. Cardii, I ending is telling us that it is in the plural, but it is still in the nominative case, meaning it is the subject. So wherever you see cardii, it does not matter where it is in the sentence, it is the subject of the sentence because it's in the nominative case. So one way to think about the nominative case is it is the one performing the action. Another way to look at it is it answers the question who. When we say the Son of God gave the gift to the man, gave is the main verb. So it answers the question, who gave the gift to the man? The subject gave. Whatever noun is in the nominative case, that is the one. So it answers the question, who? That's another way to think of the nominative case. Next case. Nominative case is the subject case. The genitive case is used for possession or family relations. Possession or family relations. For example, remember we just saw he phone. This ending told us that it's in the nominative case, phone ending. Now look at this ending. Is, it's still phone. In the nominative case, the ending was eta. In the genitive case, the ending is ace. So remember, he phone, the meaning of this is the voice as the subject. Now, what would phones communicate? Phones is of the voice, possession of the voice, belonging to the voice, belonging to the voice, of the voice. Remember previously, the I ending communicated nominative plural, the hearts as the subject. Oops. But here, oh, why am I doing that? But here, own ending is communicating possession, communicating genitive case of hearts. Whereas car, the I ending communicated subject, the hearts. Are you noticing how the endings are communicating to us what the case is? And the genitive case answers the question whose. The Son of God gave the gift to the man. The English preposition of is added in the translation. So, for example, when we say here the Son of God, whose son is he? He is the Son of God. So the genitive case usually answers the question whose. And the way we translate it is using the English preposition of. Sometimes we may also use a pronoun like my son, right? Something like that. But some way to communicate possession. Genitive case is about possession. So we saw nominative case, subject, genitive case, possession. Third case, dative case, used to indicate indirect object. What is the indirect object? The indirect object is not directly receiving the action, but indirectly receiving through the direct object. That's an indirect object, right? Let's see if there's an example here. So let me give an example. I just gave a simple example, right? Let's say the author wrote the book with his pen, right? Wrote is the main word. The book, direct object. This little word to, and usually in English, whenever we see these little words, right? To, from, with, any word that comes after this shows that it is the indirect object. It's not directly receiving the action wrote. The book is the one directly receiving the action. But this indirect object is indirectly receiving the action. So, do you notice how this looks very similar to the nominative case? Nominative case also was the same thing. He, phone. He, phone. Only difference between the nominative case and the dative case is here. What is this called?
Iota.
Iota subscript.
Subscript.
Iota subscript. The dative case has the iota subscript. So the dative case in this example looks very much like the nominative case, except it has a iota subscript, right? And the way you would translate che phone with the iota subscript is to or for the voice. This little word here would denote that it is the indirect object. And here, in the nominative, it was just cardii. But when it's ice with the sigma added at the end, it's the dative case. And this would be translated to or for hearts. To or for hearts. So anytime you want to translate the dative case noun into English, you would use to or for generally. And it answers the question. The dative case answers the question. To or for whom? The Son of God gave the gift. The gift is the direct object. To the man, indirect object. Okay. Yes, I see a question.
Can you explain the second example, Karthi eyes? Like how, like from the first one, we can see that iota subscript is indicating. For the second one,
It's this ending. The ending ice is communicating the dative case. The ice ending. Now, how do we know that this ice ending is communicating the dative case? We learn the paradigms. So in a way, this is unfair to you because I haven't showed you the paradigms yet. So you don't really know that this ending communicates the dative case. So you have to take it at my word. But at the end of this class, towards the end of the class, I will show you the paradigms. In the paradigms, you will see that this ice ending communicates dative case. And you have to memorize it. There's no other way.
Brother, I have a query. In
Yes.
the first example, the iota subscript is usually not pronounced. No, that's what you mentioned.
Yes.
So in that case, if someone is reading, both nominative and dative looks similar.
That's correct. Both nominative and dative sound similar,
Okay.
right? It looks different because of the iota subscript. Now, what is different is here, the article.
Okay.
And again, we haven't looked at the article yet. We will look at it today. But you remember in the nominative, the article is he. E, fo, ne. But in the dative, the article is different. Te.
Great.
Yes. So let's keep going. Some of these things will become more clear as we go. But remember, so far, what we've looked at is there are 4 cases: nominative, genitive, dative, and now we have to look at accusative. Let's see the next one. Accusative case, 4th one. The accusative case is used for the direct object of the verb, which is the noun which is directly receiving the verb. Here, the ending, an ending, is communicating that it is the accusative case. In the plural, the as ending is communicating that it is the accusative case. The accusative case answers the question, what? What did the Son of Man, what did the Son of God give? What did the Son of God give? Okay, accusative case. So 4 cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. Nominative communicates subject, genitive communicates possession, dative communicates indirect object, accusative communicates direct object. 4 cases. Okay. Please give me one moment. Okay, so those are the 4 cases. Let's keep going now. Morphology and paradigms. Okay, there it is. Unlike English, word order is not significant in Greek, meaning words can be in any place in Greek, and they will always communicate the same thing wherever they are in the sentence. Unlike English. Greek nouns will have different case endings depending on their function in a sentence. We just saw, right? One communicates subject. Phones communicates possession. Phone with the dative, with the iota subscript, communicates dative indirect object. Phonane communicates accusative, right? Direct object. Greek nouns will have different case endings depending on their function in a sentence. The case of a noun determines whether it is the subject, the direct object, etc. So how does this work? How does this work, right? You see a word in Greek anywhere in scripture. You see phone. If you learn your paradigms, which you're supposed to learn, you look at the ending of the word. You know in the paradigm, what is this ending? What does this communicate? This is accusative ending. And immediately you know, because it is accusative, what function is it doing in the sentence? It is the direct object in the sentence. That will be the process of translation. Look at the word, look at the noun, look at the ending of the noun, remember from memory, what is this ending? Is it, what kind of a case is it? And recollect the case and translate it appropriately. That's the process. Morphology. So what does this mean, right? Did you notice in all the examples that we used for phone A, the only thing that was changing was the ending here. For nominative, it was eta. For genitive, it was eta sigma. For dative, it was eta iota subscript. For accusative, it was eta nu. Only the endings changed. What remained the same? Phone always remained the same in different endings. That's called the stem. So every noun has a stem which will never change. It will always be the same. Only thing that changes is the ending. And that ending tells us, is it nominative? Is it accusative? Is it genitive? Is it dative? Also tells us, is it singular? Is it plural? And all nouns by their categorization are either masculine, feminine, or neuter. Okay. Every noun, the same thing. Now, cardia. Cardii has a stem, cardi, which never changes. The only thing which changes is the endings. In first declension nouns, there are two patterns. So you remember last week I told you to think of declensions as a broad set of different nouns that have the same way they decline or end. So this ending is all the same, and the same way all these nouns in first declension end. That's why we are putting them, all of them, in one box. We are calling them first declension. And we are learning these endings because it's the same endings for all nouns. Only thing that changes is the stem, right? That's how we are learning. Now it turns out that there are actually two subgroups here. The eta pattern, which all follow these endings, eta. And there's another alpha pattern, which follows this pattern. Then you may actually say, if there are two groups, why can't we have two different declensions? We can call this first declension, this second declension. Why are we calling both these together as first declension, right? I hope any of you had that question in your mind. You'll get the answer to it in a minute. Alpha endings, that subgroup in first declension, which follow the alpha pattern, are found on those nouns whose stem, remember the stem is the thing that doesn't change, or D, the stem. If the stem ends in either iota or rho, this is supposed to be rho, then they usually follow the alpha endings, the alpha pattern. Okay. So now we finally come to this thing called the paradigm, right? What's a paradigm? A paradigm is the table that gives you the different endings. So everything in the purple are the endings: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative. These are the cases, these are the 4 different cases. And the number, singular, plural. And most of the nouns in the first declension are feminine. So now you have all 3 aspects. Gender, feminine, eta pattern usually feminine, feminine noun. So phone, feminine noun, nominative case, singular number, right? Everything in this paradigm. So what are we supposed to do now? Very simple. We have to learn these endings, right? Let's walk through it now. Okay. Nominative singular. By the way, you can ignore this. This is the article. We'll look at the article at the ending. Right? For now, just ignore the article. I'll only read out the noun part. Nominative singular for phone is just phone. Genitive singular, phones. Dative singular, phone with the iota subscript. Accusative singular, phoneme. Nominative plural for phone, phoni. Genitive plural for phone, phonon. Dative plural for phone, phonais. Accusative plural, phonas. So how do you learn this, right? Easiest way, just memorize the endings in the sequence. So you can say ASAN, ASAN, right? ASAN. Or write down the table, 20 times. Some way you've got to figure out to memorize this. So remember again, I told you, if you ever see phonais in a sentence, your mind should immediately recollect that this ice ending is dative plural. And you should immediately say the way to translate this is to or from the voices. Why? Because it's plural. If you ever see ace, phones, your mind should immediately recognize that this is the genitive singular ending, and therefore it should be translated off the voice to denote the possession, genitive. Okay. Now alpha pattern. Remember I said it's this subgroup in the first declension. Let's walk through it. Nominative singular, cardia, sorry. Genitive singular, cardias. Dative singular, cardia. Accusative singular, cardian. Nominative plural, cardii. Genitive plural, cardion. Dative plural, cardiis. Accusative plural, cardias. What do you do with this? Again, memorize. No other way. I'll tell you some interesting observations, but the basic way you learn this is you memorize these paradigms. Us, on, us, on, I own, ice, us. I own, ice, us, right? You just memorize them. Your mind has to know these things by heart. Okay? Now let me ask the question. Why is the eta pattern and the alpha pattern is one group, and why are we calling it first declension? Why can't we just call them two different declensions? Why are they in the same group?
The word ending with eta and iota.
The word ending with?
The stem.
Yeah, the stem. The stem here is ending with a iota.
Iota, and there it is.
There it was a nu in the eta pattern.
So
you know why they are in the same group? See the plural endings? I, own, ice, us. And now see the eta pattern. Let me clear this out. So even in the eta pattern, I, own, ice, us. The eta pattern and the alpha pattern have the same endings in the plural. Same endings. The only things which have changed are the singular. Which is why grammarians think it's better you just learn them both as one declension. Why? Because in the plural, they are following the same pattern. And beyond that, the article remains the same. The feminine article here. Even in the alpha pattern, same feminine article, no change. Tes, tain, I tone, tais, tas. Tes, tain, I tone, tais, tas. Right? This is why the eta pattern and the alpha pattern is in one group. Why? Because, okay, there is change, but the change is only in the singular and it's minimal change. I'll tell you, I'll show you something else which is interesting here, right? See the nominative singular is just eta. Here is just alpha, right? Alpha. See the ending here, eta sigma for genitive singular. Here, alpha sigma. There it was eta sigma. Here, alpha sigma. Dative singular. Eta with the iota subscript. Here, alpha with the iota subscript. And here it's alpha nu. There it is eta nu. Okay? So it's the nu ending, it's the sigma ending. So it's very similar, which is why we study it as one group and call it first declension nouns. Yes, a question?
Brother, this genitive singular for the alpha pattern and for the accusative plural, the endings are same. So in that case, the article would help us to determine the genitive and the accusative.
Very good observation. Genitive singular ending is the same as accusative plural. So you're right. The article tells us whether it is genitive singular or accusative plural because the article is different. And beyond that, even the context tells us. But this is the easiest way to differentiate between the two. Okay? So what do you need to do now? You need to memorize the two patterns, eta pattern and alpha pattern. Yeah, like you notice the genitive, singular, accusative, plural have the same forms. How do we determine? Context is one thing, article is the other way. Okay, now let's get to the article. In English, there are two indefinite articles, a or an, right? A boy, an apple. And the indefinite article tells us that this is not, the boy is not someone definite. It's different from saying the boy. When you say the boy, you're being definite about the boy, a particular boy, right? But when you use a or an, you're trying to communicate in English that you're referring to an indefinite noun, right? English has two indefinite articles. Greek has no indefinite article. So if you ever want to say a boy, or in this example, a voice, there's no word in Greek to communicate or an. Doesn't exist. Then how do you do it? Well, you don't have an article. If you don't say tain, phonane, you remove tain, the article, it automatically conveys that this is indefinite, a voice. Hora, there's no article beside it. If there's no article, it automatically means it's indefinite. A Greek noun that has no definite article is called anarthrous noun. This is just a technical term. So if anybody ever tells you cardia is anarthrous, you should immediately expect that there's no article beside it, therefore it is indefinite, it's anarthrous. Greek has only one article and there is only one definite article. Oh, sorry. English has only one definite article, the boy. Greek also has only one definite article, but three different forms for it. Three different forms for the Greek article. The masculine form, the feminine form, and the neuter form. All three forms communicate the idea of the in Greek. So when you say ha, it means the. When you say hey, it means the. When you say ta, it means the. Right? But in English, you just have one word to communicate definiteness. In Greek, you have three different ways. If you want to talk about a masculine noun, you have to use ha, hey for a feminine, ta for a neuter. And now, even more, right? This again has four different forms for four different cases. Feminine has four different forms for four different cases. Neuter has four different forms for four different cases. 12 ways in Greek to say the. So you can imagine what a fun language it is, no? The Greeks used articles with abstract nouns also. In English, we would never say the wisdom. It's very abstract, right? But in Greek, there is article even for abstract nouns. Okay? The article follows the eta pattern and not the alpha pattern. Okay, remember in cardia, in the alpha pattern, this was cardia. There is no ha, right? Article. The article only follows the eta pattern in the feminine form. Eta pattern. And you see how it matches the endings so uniformly. Right? Let me also tell you two things that will help you remember this paradigm. Usually for dative singular, for any declension, first declension, second declension, third declension, usually there's always an iota subscript. So whenever you see an iota subscript, it should immediately tell you that's a dative singular. Genitive plural is always on omega nu. Whether it's first declension, second declension, third declension, always it's omega nu. So these two are easy giveaways for you. So now, in addition to learning the first declension endings for nouns, you should also learn the article, the morphology of the article, or how the article is changing form. What is morphology? The way it's changing its morph, the way it's changing its form. So if I tell you, give me the morphology for the feminine article, you should be able to tell this one. He, tes, te, tain, high, tone, tais, tas. One good way to learn this is, if you really learn this, the article, in the eta pattern, in a way, you've already learned the eta pattern nouns, right? Because it's the same thing. A, tes, ace, te, tain, ain, high, I, tone, own, ice, as, right? So you may want to just start off with learning the article, feminine article forms. So automatically you know these as well now. And now that you know the eta pattern, you don't have to learn this, because alpha pattern, this is the same thing in the plural. In the alpha pattern, you only have to learn alpha, alpha sigma, alpha with iota subscript, alpha nu. Finished. 10 minutes, you're done. If you can learn the feminine article first. Let's skip this. This is not... yeah, let's not worry about the accents. Conjunctions. Please give me just a moment. What are conjunctions? Conjunctions are indeclinable words, which means they do not change form. They don't morph. They don't decline. Their endings don't change, right? They are fixed. They are indeclinable words used to describe, used to link words, phrases, clauses, and larger discourse units. For example, what do we say? I went to the store and I bought some milk. I went to the store, one phrase. I bought some milk, another phrase. This little word and is helping us to link or join words and phrases and clauses and larger discourse units. Those are conjunctions. Where most commonly used conjunctions in Greek, de. This was part of our vocabulary. Actually, all three words were part of our vocabulary for week 1. Day, kai, and men. They are all coordinating conjunctions. What does that mean? Means they communicate parallel relationship between the words, phrases, clauses that they link. They are parallel. When there are two parallel discourse units or parts of the sentence, you will use these conjunctions to connect them. You may say, what sort of phrases are not parallel? Those are called subordinate clauses, right? Or some other way. But day and kai and men connect, link, parallel relationship between words, phrases, clauses. This word day is interesting. It's called a post-positive because it will never occur at the beginning of a sentence. You will never see day as the first word of a sentence. It will always be later on. But when you translate it into English, you should always put it first. Why is that? We'll see it in an example later. But it's called a post-positive for that reason. Parsing. What is parsing? To parse a word means you have to tell everything you know about it. What do we know so far about words, right? We know that they have case, number, gender. Nouns have that, right? So these three things you know well. What is this lexical form? The lexical form is the form in which it appears in a dictionary. As you already have noticed now, Greek nouns change like anything, right? Different forms, accusative, dative, genitive, so on. Which form will be in the dictionary? Usually it's the nominative form, usually, but not always. Sometimes you see the genitive form in the dictionary. So the lexical form tells you how is the word in the dictionary if you ever want to look it up. That's the lexical form of a noun. So when we say parse a noun, you have to tell us what the lexical form is. You have to tell the gender. You have to tell the case. You have to tell the number. And you have to translate that noun. So for example, if I tell you phone, ace, you have to tell me what's its lexical form, what's its gender, what's its case, what's its number, how do you translate this? If I ask you to parse the noun. So for example, let's walk through this. What if I ask you to parse cardian, right? It may be unfair now for me to ask you to parse it because you've just seen it all, maybe for the first time. So let me not put that question to you, but I will ask you in the future at any point, just give you a noun in either the eta pattern or the alpha pattern and tell you parse the noun and you have to give me all this information. So let me do it for now. Cardian, what is the lexical form? Cardia, what gender it is, feminine. What case it is, accusative. What number it is, singular. What's its translation? Heart as the direct object. Why? Because it's the accusative. That's parsing. Okay. Oh, it's anarthrous, right? So a heart. Remember what is anarthrous? No article. So it is a heart. Had it been tain cardian, it would have been the heart. Okay. Good progress. You thought we wouldn't be able to do all the slides, but here we are. And let's look at the vocabulary now. Adele, oh, by the way, this now should also tell you why we have this little word even in our past vocabulary. right? Remember, article has three forms, right? Masculine, feminine, and neuter. In the masculine, it's ha. In the feminine, it's he. In the neuter, it's ta. So when you have a noun and you have the article beside it, it's telling you what's the gender of the noun. So if you see Adelphos, comma, ha, it's communicating to you that Adelphos is a masculine noun, which has the masculine article to go with it. Okay, so Adelphos, brother. Anthropos, man. This is also masculine. Theos, God. Theology, theos. Anthropos, anthropology. Adelphos, Philadelphia. Phileo is love. Adelphos is brother, the city of brotherly love. Philadelphia. Cosmos, world or universe. Cosmos, cosmology, cosmetic. Kurios, very important word. Lord, master, sir. Kurios. You notice all these nouns are masculine. And ha, the article ha is telling us that. Excuse me. Next, logos, word, message, account. Logic, theology. Theos, God. Logos, word, the study of God. Theology. Psychology, logos, word. Nomos, law or principle. Uranos, no rough breathing. Uranos, heaven or sky. Huios, son or descendant. So if I say huios, so if I say huios theu, what am I trying to say? Let's see if anyone can get this. Huios theu.
God's son.
God's son, or the son of God, right? I didn't tell you second declension nouns, but just wanted to see if anyone intuitively would pick that up. Christos, Christ, Messiah, anointed one. What is this? This is telling us that it is the neuter. This is a neuter noun. For the first time, we're saying a neuter noun. Ta. Ergon, work or deed. Ergonomic chair, we say, right? Ergon, work or deed. Euangelion, good news, gospel. Euangelion. Iron, temple, sanctuary. Semeion, sign. Technon, child, son, descendant. What was the other word that we just saw which says child? Huios.
Huios.
Right? Huios, and then technon is also child. And there we go. Wonderful. So, a lot of information. If you've never seen this before, it can be quite daunting. But I hope you see that it is easy if you can do it in the right way. Start with the feminine article. Memorize it. And then you use that to learn the eta pattern nouns. Once you learn the eta pattern nouns, the plural remains the same for the alpha pattern, and you just learn the alpha pattern singular, right? So here's your work, very easy. You have to memorize the paradigm for the feminine article, You have to memorize the paradigm for the eta pattern and the alpha pattern. Okay. And I'll post the assignment for this week. Most likely it's going to be to write out, firstly, by looking at the table, these three paradigms, and then without looking at the table, from memory, to write down these three paradigms. And if you can do this, the rest of the nouns will be a cakewalk for you. Okay, so I encourage you to do this. Let me stop.